It's been teased for quite a while, but now we kind of get our first proper taste of the Volkswagen ID.7. It's the company's flagship electric car. Yes, it does still have the Passat, but in certain countries, including Ireland, it's just going to be the ID.7. Now, this is a car that is very much shaped and designed with aerodynamics in mind. You can see that just by how it looks, especially with this kind of very rounded front end here. You get the latest IQ light design technology here as well, so all the latest headlight tech is in there, and you get the light bar going all the way across. That design is, I said, it's shaped by aerodynamics, but it's not the most interesting design. Personally speaking, I think it's a little bit on the bland side, especially when you consider some other models like Hyundai's Ioniq 6, and obviously you've got what the offering is from Tesla as well. Now, speaking of Tesla, this is a car that does kind of sit between the Model 3 and the Model S. It is bigger than a 3, it's a little bit longer, so there is that to contend with. But really what's going to drive people towards this car is that aerodynamics and that efficiency. It's a big thing that Volkswagen is targeting with this car. It's going to have initially a 77 kilowatt hour battery. That's going to be good for 621 kilometers in WLTP, which is a pretty good range. And we know WLTP, you do have to take it with a pinch of salt, but for most people that is still a very, very good range figure, even if you take a little bit off that with some longer motorway driving. When it comes to topping up that battery as well, it's got 175 kilowatt peak DC charging. That means you're only going to need 28 minutes to go from 10 to 80% with this. That makes topping up on the go that bit easier. And around the back you get the same IQ light technology. It's quite an interesting design in terms of this kind of pattern that runs all the way through it. Now, when this is off, it's just all kind of a bright silver, but I do like how they've kind of segmented that around the side. When it comes to boot space, it is actually quite a practical size, as you would expect for something like this. Even though it's kind of got a sort of a saloon shape, there is still a nice big hatchback. Very easy to open up, a lot of space in there. You can increase that as well by dropping down the rear seats. It's a 60-40 split, and you have a hatch in the middle. You've also got a little bit of extra storage underneath here as well, so if you do want to put your charging cables in there, you can also do that. Now, if you do want to have even more space, wait until next year, because there's going to be an ID.7 Tourer, an estate car variant of this, and do keep an eye on our channel because we'll have a little video preview of that coming too. When it comes to performance, this is the current range-topping model. It's got a rear-wheel drive unit with 286 horsepower and 545 newton-meters of torque. That means it can go from 0 to 100 in 6.5 seconds. Now, let's have a look inside. First thing you notice when you sit inside the ID.7 is this large 15-inch touchscreen display. It looks very impressive. It reacts very quickly to all of your inputs. Everything you want to do is there. It all reacts nice and quickly. And for the first time, I know it's something that was very heavily criticized in the past, all of the lower touch bar is now illuminated, which is a great thing because everybody seemed to want to complain about it, including me. So it's good now that is also done. So it's no longer an issue. Everything is almost forgiven. There is still haptic buttons on the steering wheel itself, so there's no physical buttons. They're relatively easy to get around. You do kind of get used to them after a while, and they give you a little bit of haptic feedback when you use them. The driving position itself has a lot of adjustability into it. There's a manually adjustable steering wheel, loads of room there for reach and rake, and everything is made onto the steering column. So all your lights, your wipers are all on the left hand side, and your drive selector is on the right hand side, same as what you have with the ID Buzz. So you just twist this forward or back to engage drive or reverse. Your park is just there on the outside as well. There is also a small, very slender digital instrument display right in front of you. All the basic information is there that you're going to need, but more importantly, you have a larger augmented reality head-up display that will overlay as you see it. Things like direction changes, all that kind of features are there. The rest of the interior, it's a bit of a minimalist layout really. There's no real physical buttons as such other than what you've got on the door for your mirrors and your windows. You've got a large central unit here to open up with a lot of storage. So you've got a wireless charging pad, 2 USB-C charge ports, 2 cup holders here. You can cover all that up if you want as well with these 2 sliders, and there's more storage space underneath this unit and between the driver's seats here as well. So between the front seat, you've got more storage space there as well. So you do have a lot of room if you want to put stuff away in this car. You've still got a decent sized glove box. But other than that, it's a very clean design. All the smart vents are made into the front of the dashboard and below the screen here. And this is the smart vents that have been previewed by Volkswagen a while ago. And this will adjust according to how you want it. So you can actually change how they move, where they're positioned, either manually via the touchscreen, or you can actually have it in a smart way. So if it detects that there's a lot more heat over this side, if you're driving and the sun is coming in this window, it can actually change the position of the vent and have more cool air blow there to create a more balanced temperature throughout the cabin. And you've also got a full length panoramic glass roof, which you can have either opaque or at the flick of a switch, have it go clear like that. So you can either see out or have it opaque and help keep the temperature down a little bit more. Now, one of the big positives of this car is that rear seat passenger space is very generous. It's easily bigger than what you would have had in another similarly sized car like a Volkswagen Arteon or something like that. There's just about able to reach the seat in front, so that's very good. I can stretch out my feet here as well. I can just about get them in under the seat. It's not the biggest gap, but I can stretch out. And I've got a good amount of room here on the side to rest my elbow on. And if I don't want to use the middle seat, I can pull down this center armrest. It's got 2 cup holders built in as well for a little bit of extra comfort if you're only going to have 2 people in the back. But you can get away with having 3 adults back here, because this middle seat, okay, it is a little bit sculpted here between the 2 main outer seats, but this base, although it is on the firmer side, it's wide enough that you could get a 3rd passenger in here. Okay, it's going to be a little bit tighter, but it is still a very decent size back here. It's nice and wide, and you've got a flat floor across the back as well, because obviously this is a fully electric car, so that's another positive. Other practical features, well, you've got decent sized door bins here. You've got 2 more USB-C ports. You can have outer rear heated seats. You've got ventilation back here, and there's even pockets in the backs of the seats if you want to put a device in, your phone if it's on charge or anything like that. So there's that as another positive aspect. And the big thing is you've still got that large panoramic glass roof that I mentioned as well, which gives you much more visibility on the outside. And because that 15-inch display is so big, you can see everything that's on it. So if you want to watch a map, if you're a passenger and you're monitoring how the journey's going, it's very easy to see on the nav exactly where you are. A few things you'll notice when you begin driving the ID.7. It's not actually the all-out performance, but rather how quiet and how comfortable it is. A lot of effort has gone into making this as aerodynamic as possible, which contributes to that long range figure that it has. But that also has another benefit, because it cuts through the air that bit more cleanly. It means it doesn't create a whole lot of annoying wind noise around the door mirrors and things like that, even when you're cruising at motorway speeds. It makes it that little bit more comfortable, and if you don't have the radio on, you're not listening to any annoying noises or any high frequency noises there, which, to be honest, over a long journey will begin to tire you out. They do become quite tiresome. And comfort is a big thing with this car, and that extends to these seats. Obviously you've got heated functions, you can have cooled functions, and a massaging function as well to help keep you stay fresh and alert on a long journey. And you will be able to do relatively long journeys in this car. Okay, the WLTP figure, as I said, you do need to take that with a pinch of salt. 621 kilometers, you will need to be on your absolute best behavior to get that kind of figure. But so far today, over a real mixture of driving from city to motorway to these nice twisty roads here, you've got an average of 18.1 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Now, that did also include earlier when I had 2 passengers in the car as well, so a little bit of extra weight, no offense to those people, but again, having, you know, a typical, very typical use case, 3 people in the car, a little bit of luggage, and normal driving, air conditioning on, all that kind of stuff. and it was averaging 18.1. It did actually drop below to 17.9, 17.8 briefly, and again that figure will probably get improving over time as you do more of a distance. So it's pretty good in terms of efficiency, because that new electric motor has an all new internal setup that has explicitly been designed to be more efficient. And I don't want to keep harping on about efficiency, but it's really important with an electric car. You want to have a car that has a very efficient electric motor, and by the looks of it, this motor seems to be able to deliver on that, and it is going to be rolled out across the rest of the ID family too, so it's good news if you're considering any of the other models. But there are other things at play here. This car is equipped with the optional adaptive dampers, and they do make the car that bit more comfortable. It's kind of annoying that we haven't been able to drive a car with just the regular standard passive suspension, just purely for comparison's sake, so I can't give you a whole lot more insight on that at the moment. The suspension has 4 different modes altogether. You've got, usual comfort, sport, things like that. It monitors the suspension movement on each wheel 1,000 times a second to make sure it's got the optimum and the best performance setup for that particular wheel. What does all that translate to in reality? Well, it's a very comfortable car. Even in the sport mode, it doesn't get bone-jarringly stiff. It firms up, of course, and on a twistier road, it does maybe encourage you to kind of push a little bit more, but this is not an overtly sporty car in that sense. This is much more about comfort. You can feel it from when you drive this car that Volkswagen is not trying to chase performance. Now, perhaps when the GTX model comes down the line, that will have a little bit more of a harder edge to it, but this is a very comfortable, refined car. Refinement is the one thing that they do seem to have with this. All of the controls, how everything feels, the accelerator pedal, the modulation of that, the brake pedal feel, and even the steering has a very nice feel to it. It just feels like a very well judged car. It is arguably not the most exciting car to drive, but you kind of get the impression that it's not setting out to do that either. I mean, we're cruising along at 80 kilometers an hour here on an average road surface. There's hardly any noise seeping into the cabin here. All of the sort of the acoustics inside are very, very nice. And if you want to do long distance EV driving, well, this is going to be up to the job. Yes, it does have a couple of rivals. Arguably, the Ioniq 6 is that bit more aerodynamic and perhaps that bit more interesting looking, especially inside. But this is Volkswagen kind of doing what people expect from Volkswagen. The new touchscreen display definitely works an awful lot better than before. That does seem to be a big step forward over the previous ID models, although admittedly that is coming from a bit of a low base. Still, it's good. It's good to have that improvement. I would love if there was physical buttons on the steering wheel, but I guess it's going to be one step at a time with Volkswagen. But overall, this is a car that really prioritizes comfort. There's so much space in the back here. You'd be very happy to be sitting in the back there for an hour or 2 hours on a long journey. I don't think you'd have any complaint with it. But the driver assistance systems are also worth a mention. Some of them do seem to work quite well. Some of them I need to spend a little bit more time before I can really make a proper judgment on it. It does now have a lane change assistance as well, so if you're on a motorway, it can do some of the automated lane changes once you prompt it with an indicator. But everything else works quite well. I do like the amount of regen that it has naturally. If you're driving up behind the car and it's slowing down, it will automatically apply a little bit of regen to slow you down. It doesn't bring the car to a complete stop. Even in the B mode, it's not quite one pedal driving, or at least the strength of one pedal driving that we get with some cars, but it's not bad. If you do want to have a little bit more fun, press the mode button, which is always displayed at the top of the touchscreen. Press sport and you get all that power on tap instantly. It also dials up the little bit of regen that you have, so you've always got that bit more regen. It means you're going to have that bit more battery energy going back in. Now that sport mode doesn't entirely transform the car, but it does liven up that electric motor, and certainly enough to push you back into the seat. Again, this is the optional setup, so it is going to be that little bit better, but it does hold its own very nicely in corners. It stays nice and flat, and you get a nice bit of, a little bit more weight in the steering. It does stay nice and level, nice and flat through the bend, so it does give you that little bit of confidence. And having obviously a rear wheel drive setup does feel like you get that little bit more punch when you're accelerating out of a corner. But really, this is Volkswagen's range champion. This is the car that proves you can do that bit longer distance in an EV, and that's really the reason why you're going to want to buy a car like this. It's that bit more efficient than an SUV, and you've got bucket loads of room in the back, and up front here it's a very nicely laid out cabin, and some of the features that we've shown already in the video are pretty neat as well. Overall, it's a definite improvement over the past ID models we've already had to date. That range figure is going to be good, even, as I said, when you add a pinch of salt to it. And overall, okay, it's not the most exciting of cars, but inside it's very well put together. It's nice and quiet, plenty of refinement, and plenty of comfort. And that, when you're getting a large saloon like this, is pretty much what you want. So that's our first drive review of the Volkswagen ID.7. You can read a more detailed review on our website. It's CompleteCar.ie. You'll find it linked in the description below. It's a great resource for finding your next new car. Thanks for watching.